Very cute picture. Come on, start the video.
Ooh, let's see. Well, I guess if Matt's here, we do have a quorum. Good evening, Bob. I'm just wondering, have you joined us for an agenda item, or are you just joining us for general interest?
Let me unmute. Actually, both. There is an agenda item was to go over looking at the current conditions regarding COVID in the town hall and
Got it.
facilities. And then there is something on the new agenda talking about the continuation of government.
Got it. Okay. Great. Well, as always, we really appreciate what you're doing. It's you're doing a lot for the town. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Hal.
Well, let's see. We've got. Is this the week that Beth is off?
Yes.
Yep, she won't be here.
Yeah, she's traveling, I believe. Okay, well, we'll give it one more minute because it's, at least according to my clock, 5:59. Okay, is everybody ready?
Yes.
So, as chair of the Northwood Select Board, due to the COVID-19 coronavirus crisis, and in accordance with Governor Sununu's Emergency Order Number 12, pursuant to Executive Order 2020-04, we're authorized to meet electronically. There is no physical location. However, in accordance with the emergency order, I confirm the following. We're providing public access by telephone with additional access possibilities by video and other electronic means. The other electronic means in this case are YouTube and also the Zoom platform that we're using. We're providing notice of the meeting and the necessary information to access the meeting. Those are on our website and they are included in the written documentation also. But if you go to the website, it's a lot easier to just click on the link. If there is a problem during the meeting with access, please call 603-340-5711 or email Paul at Pallard, P-A-L-L-A-R-D, at town.northwood.nh.us. We'll adjourn the meeting if the public isn't able to access the meeting. And that might mean that you don't even hear or see an official move to access, but if it's due to the meeting venue, we will not continue. Because we're doing this electronically, all votes will be done by roll call. I'm going to start with a roll call for attendance. Let's see, Matt.
Present.
Tim. Tim's here. Tim, yeah,
Present, yeah. No,
just say, please say it because
my
we're.
mouse is moving.
Pam.
Present.
And Hal Kreider is also present and in the room, just for right to know concerns, is my wife also. My wife Irene is also here, I should say. Thank you. At this point, I'd like everybody to rise and pledge to the closest flag to them, please. Okay, thank you, everybody. I'm looking on the Zoom meeting. I see one person from the public. If you'd like to speak for Citizens Forum, please unmute yourself or somehow signal to Paul or us that you'd like to speak. And Walter, do we have anybody else? Or are there any other communications that came in via email?
No.
None. Okay. Okay, I'm not hearing or seeing anything indicating other folks want to speak. So we're going to move on to the ongoing business, the first of which is to approve the minutes of April 13th. Does anybody have any edits or corrections before we get into that? Pam.
Page 5, line 11.
Hold on a second. I'd like to just turn to that, please.
Yep. Page 5, line 11.
Okay, yes.
Batter bid.
Pam, did I lose you? Say that again.
No, I'm right here. Batter bid. It should be barter bid.
Ah, okay. Yeah. Got it. Got it.
Thing.
Yeah. Okay. Anybody else have anything? I do, actually. If you scroll up to the announcement that I make at the start, you'll see that part of that is actually included on the second page and is redundant. So it'd be page 2, lines 3, 4, and 5. They're essentially redundant to what is listed above in D. So I think that can be taken out. That might be a carryover from when we had originally done it. Does anybody else have anything else?
Oh, that's good.
Okay, if not, then I'm looking for a motion. Oh, Walter, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Could you just clarify that again? What did you want to omit?
Which lines?
Page 2, lines 3, 4, and 5. I don't believe we need any of that.
Okay, thank you.
Because everything is stated in line 47 and line 1 prior to that.
Got it. Thank you.
So at this point, I'm looking for a motion to approve the minutes with the edits that we discussed.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second, thank you. Any further discussion? Hearing none. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim
Yes.
and Pam?
Yes.
And Hal is yes also. Okay, at this point, I'd like to move on to the consent agenda. I'll just remind the public that some of the items on the consent agenda, like the AP and payroll, we review in detail prior to the meeting so that we have time to make sure we can scrutinize everything closely. Walter, I'm going to ask you to read off the consent agenda, and I'll just remind everybody as you're listening to it that if there's any items that you feel we should take off the consent agenda and discuss and vote on separately, then just please keep that in mind for at the end when Walter's done. So Walter, if you would, please.
So the consent agenda for April 27, 2021. It includes an accounts payable manifest dated April 21, 2021, batch number 17538 for $600. An accounts payable manifest dated April 28, 2021, batch number 17550 for $38,529.25. And a payroll manifest dated April 21, 2021, batch number 17536 for $75,562.76. It also includes the treasurer's report for the month of March. And also the following abatements. Shirley Allen, Robert and Donna Bellevue, Michael and Kimberly Cormus, Anthony and Cynthia Coriunas, Rebecca Dubois, Dana Resale, Paul Thiem, Michael and Susan Trudell, and Claudia Williams. Those are for a vote for either approval or denial by the board based on the recommendation of our assessor. We also have the property tax exemptions for approval or denial based on the assessor's recommendation for Roger Blad for a veteran's credit. Other items included is an intent to cut from Robert Bennett, an intent to excavate from David Ducko, and a cemetery deed and perpetual contract for Paul Lennon Jr.
Okay, thank you, Walter. And just to make sure everybody understands what we're doing, the board received a packet of information last week, 126 pages worth at last count, that includes all the information related to the abatements and the recommendations and the documentation that goes with it. When Walter says we're going to approve or deny based on the assessor's recommendations, what it means is that for each of these individuals or people listed, they have submitted a request. The assessor has looked at all their documentation, as we have, and the assessor has made a recommendation. Some of them are to deny, some of them are to approve. But the intent of the consent agenda is to take the recommendations of the assessor as he has shown us in the documentation. I'll just note that that documentation will also be available to the public. Okay, at this point, I'm going to ask if any board member would like to have any of the items taken off the consent agenda. Tim, go ahead.
I just want something clarified for Mr. Dacko. Should that have his company's name on it? Because we're working his site, right?
Well, I think it's, well, I'm going to let Walter answer, but generally it's by the person and then
Okay.
they list the lots on the application.
Okay.
So
I
his
wanna make
lots will
sure.
be listed. And you might recollect, Tim, that this is, as best I can tell, this is related to the approval that I mentioned last week by the
Yeah.
planning board. So he's going to try to get started on those back lots.
Yep. Okay.
Yeah, and I guess just one other mention on the accounts payable, $38,000, 25 of that is the health insurance, just so people get some sense as to how we're spending the money.
Thank you.
Okay, okay, and just so, again, we get comfortable with this process, I think questions like Tim brought up are completely suitable. We don't need to necessarily take that item off the agenda. So if there's just, sort of like, double checking on something on a particular item, we do that as part of the consent agenda approval. It's only if you feel we need to vote differently than approving as the consent agenda is written or read that we need to take it off. So final call for taking anything off. I'm seeing everybody shaking their head no. So do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as read by Walter?
So moved.
And do we have a second?
Second.
Oh, Pam got it.
Okay. Any further discussion on any of the items? Hearing none, we'll have a roll call vote. Tim?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, thank you, Walter. I know that gets a little tedious, but we got to do it. Okay, next up.
Apologize for any of the names that I didn't pronounce appropriately.
Oh, yeah. No, I think you did better than I would have, so. Next up, I'm just going to say it. I am tickled to death to see these next three items. It's the first review for some of the policies that we have been promising. Thanks to Cheryl, we're making some great progress. Last meeting, we had one of the policies approved. This week, or tonight, we have another one, actually two. So Walter, how do you want to handle this? Do you want to speak to them or do we want to have Cheryl speak to them? What's your pleasure?
Cheryl will speak to the cash receipts policy. She's the author of that, and then I will speak to the health insurance buyout policy.
Okay, so I don't know if we got Cheryl or not. Oh, there she is. Hello, Cheryl. And again,
Hi.
thank you for pushing these along. Really appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome. How do you want me to just kind of outline them as we go along, or?
I think that's the way to go. I mean,
Okay.
you're just trying to explain what we're approving. We have the details, obviously, because we read through them in advance. So really what we want to do is let the folks know what we're working on and what we're approving. If they want the details, they can come in and get a copy or have Walter email one and
Yeah,
grind
absolutely.
through it just like we did.
Okay. Well, I'll start off by looking at the cash receipts policy. I know you have a policy and an administrative rules, so we'll start with the policy. And basically, this is a policy that I'd like to get in place to make sure that all the departments are aware of what we expect of them and what we need to do to be in compliance with laws and accounting principles. And we're trying to create a balance for the departments to be able to operate efficiently, but also to stay in financial control and accountability so that we can keep a good handle on things and how things are flowing through the office. The general policy is that the town clerk tax collector's office makes deposits to the bank on a daily basis because they take in the majority of the revenue coming into the town. They have been given deposit authority by the treasurer in accordance with RSA 4129. So that has to be something that the treasurer allows them to do, and she has. So they do that deposit every day. Collections from any other departments in town that receive revenue will be brought to the finance office at least weekly or daily if the value of their deposit is more than $500.
Right.
I know that in the past, some departments have been kind of holding on and collecting a group of checks or whatever, and then bringing them up. But if the total is over $500, they have to be brought to the finance office that day. And
Right.
that again is in accordance with RSA 4129. That's not my rule. Any customers anywhere in the town that are giving cash for any transactions, they will be given a signed pre-numbered receipt that shows the amount, the date, and what the purpose of the payment was. And then all cash accounts are reconciled by both the treasurer and myself on a monthly basis. We have a section of about cash boxes, and that is the departments that receive cash for services or whatever. They sometimes have to make change, obviously, so they're allowed to have a certain amount of cash on hand for making change. The cash boxes are supposed to be locked at all times in a secure location, and only the department head or the designee is allowed to have possession of the cash box or the key. Just a little security measures. We have a return check procedure that any checks that come back from the bank for whatever reason will be charged a penalty of $25 return fee. That is because the town gets charged a fee every time a check is returned by our accounts.
Yep.
In the past, I know that some checks are returned because accounts are unable to be located or whatnot, not necessarily for insufficient funds. And in the past, we have not been charging a penalty fee on those, but we still receive a charge from the bank. So I'm proposing that all return checks have to have a penalty fee, because if not, we end up eating that fee from the bank. Payment for any return checks has to be in the form of cash, money order, or bank certified check.
Right.
Cannot be replaced with another personal check. Seems
Makes
simple,
sense,
but
Cheryl.
yeah. And then we have another set of cash receipts administrative rules, just like the prior policy, that the Board of Selectmen implements the policy itself, but the nitty-gritty everyday details are in the administrative rules that you have given Walter the authority to change on a needed basis, instead of bringing the whole policy back to the board when something needs to be tweaked a little bit. So I will switch over to the cash receipts administrative rules. And basically, the deposits rules are broken down even further, in that when deposits are recorded into the accounting software, we're going to make record of if it was paid by check. In other words, who the check, the name on the check. That has not been done in the past, and it will just help when we're trying to research something through the system to be able to see a name. But the administrative rules clearly breaks down what information we need to see in each step, so that any of the departments that are processing any of this thing, they will know what's expected of them and what they need to have included in their deposit. There's a procedure for the cash boxes themselves, and that is setting a limit for the amount in the cash boxes. The town clerk tax collector's office will have $100 in their box to make change. And the police department and the town hall will each have $30 to make change for people paying by cash. There can be a random audit of any cash box at any time by myself or by Walter. And we have a form that we can fill out, and the random audit would be done, of course, in the possession of the department head of that department, so that we wouldn't just be doing it alone. But there's a form that we would be filling out and documenting how much money is in the cash box and that type of thing. So that will remain on file. Then I further break down the return check procedure as far as steps of who gets notified and what the processes are of trying to have that check replaced. And currently, right now, the treasurer is handling return checks when they come back originally from the bank. I'm proposing that be done through the finance office, only because the finance office is staffed 5 days a week and the treasurer's only in 1 day. I mean, she's been handling it great. That's not the problem. But if a check gets returned on the day after she was in the office, then it has to wait 6 days before she gets to address it again. So if it's handled through the finance office, we can get on that immediately and send out the letter and work on getting that check replaced. Then there's a Section 5 reconciliation of accounts. which outlines all of the different accounts and who balances or reconciles them each month. And the finance director or finance office and the treasurer obviously do all the cash accounts. The finance director and the tax collector and town clerk balance all the revenues that come in from that department. Finance director and building inspector will balance building permit revenue that came in. And fire rescue and the treasurer and the finance director will balance the ambulance fund receipts. And the finance director and the recreation director will balance recreation receipts when they have an applicable season for that. And that is pretty much it, except this whole policy is proposing to replace and supersede all prior cash receipts, revenue, or return checks policies that we had had in place before. Any questions?
Anybody have questions on this? Go ahead, Pam.
Yeah, Walter has the ability to make a change when necessary. I'm just wondering how those changes will be updated so that we don't get, 5 or 6 years from now, and somebody looking at this form might not be aware of Walter's change due to necessity. So how do we accomplish that, Walter?
So anytime there's a proposed change to one of the administrative rules, we'll update the format, redate it, and then redistribute it, throughout the organization so that everybody's familiar with it. So obviously it'd be the most current date would be the one in effect.
Okay, so it would be essentially this or these two documents would contain the update.
Yes.
Okay, and then go by date. All right.
Tim?
Yep, very nicely done, Cheryl. Is this new to you? Do you, or you said you wrote it, but have you used it like in the past in other towns? So if it works, so you're
Yes.
comfortable. Okay, no, I didn't mean it that way.
No.
Question.
Valid question. Absolutely. Yes,
Yeah,
valid question.
great questions.
No, I've used
Flows good.
I've used a very similar format in 2 other towns, and yeah, it does work very well.
No, thank you. Very nice. Great.
Other
Thanks.
questions? Matt, did you have any questions?
No, I think they're great. The policy and the rules both look good to me.
Good. I have I guess, related question, maybe for you and Walter. Has this been preemptively reviewed by the department heads so they have some sense as to what's coming along here? And so I just, if so, then I'm sort of assuming that they've sort of nodded their heads and say, yeah, we can make this work. And we don't think we're going to have any problems enforcing this.
Well, if I may, Walter, jump in here. Once Walter and I had kind of narrowed it down to what we, how we wanted it worded, I sent it out to all the department heads and said, this is what we're proposing. Can you look it over? Let me know if you have concerns or whatever. The only department head that got back to me was the treasurer, and she had not a concern, but she just said that about the return checks that they weren't charging if it wasn't a non-sufficient funds. And I said I would discuss that with Walter, and we did. And I said, we both agree that since the town's getting charged a fee, we need to recoup that somehow. But I haven't heard any comments or anything from any other department heads, so I have to assume no news is good news. Or
yeah. Well, the expectation, in the past, at least the perception has been that maybe it wasn't implemented uniformly, and our expectation is that it will be. So just wanted to make sure that everybody was on board. I guess the other question I have, you said on the administrative, when you got into the details about balancing with the different people, is that the same as or different from the reconciliation that you do with the treasurer?
it's the same thing. It's balancing or reconciliation. It's just 2 different words for the same thing. But yeah,
Okay.
we, both parties balances our own set of books, and then we share the information back and forth until everyone on both sides is satisfied that everything is as it should be.
Right. So it's essentially independent. Then you look at each other's and.
Correct.
Okay. Got it. Very good. So Walter, what's the next step on this?
So if there's no other questions or whatever, or anything else that might come up between now and the next meeting, we'll have it on the agenda for approval at the next meeting. But in the meantime, if there's any other questions that people have or any other amendments and so forth that they might want to have, then they can address those between now and then, and we'll make the changes and have it in final form for the next meeting.
Great, great. Again, Cheryl, thank you very much. You're on a
Welcome.
roll here. You're on a roll. Matt?
Well, I just want to, I mean, as a matter of procedure, I know we like to do the first reading and then a subsequent reading before we vote on anything. But seeing as there weren't really any even questions about it, would you be open to the idea of skipping the second reading and adopting it, or would you rather stick to the procedure, Hal?
I'm going to defer to Walter. I think part of the first reading, second reading is for the public also, Matt. So I agree with you from the employee's perspective and department head perspective, but I'm a little bit concerned about maybe the public has some comments or wants to weigh in.
Sure, that makes sense to me. I'll accept that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Okay. Yeah, I'd love to move it along, tell you the truth, but let's dot all the i's and cross the t's from a public perspective too. Okay. Then Walter, you're going to go over the health and dental buyout, or is Cheryl going to do that?
I am.
Okay. Well, again, Cheryl, thank you very much. Really appreciate your efforts on our behalf. It's great.
You're welcome.
Okay, Walter.
So the other thing that we're proposing tonight is, as you may have seen, I sent you a proposed amendment to the employee health and dental insurance buyout policy, which was, as far as I can tell, last amended in 1998. And so from my experience, obviously with the cost of health insurance that has gone up so significant since 1998, I thought it was prudent to take a look at the buyout policy. And for those that aren't familiar, this is a buyout basically of an employee's purchase of health or dental insurance because they have an opportunity to receive it, somewhere else, or for nothing or whatever in a different scenario, either through a spouse or partner or whatever. And so, obviously with the cost of insurance now, with a single plan in the ballpark of $10,000 a year, it certainly isn't much of an incentive, for $2,000 to attract somebody to consider taking maybe a spouse's policy and so forth. So, so I thought it would be at least a good idea to review that and to look at what I've seen quite regularly across the state in terms of other communities as a plan that would allow a individual to opt out and receive a buyout payment of up to 50% of the deferred cost of the town. And that to me seems to be at the bare minimum an incentive to at least have people think about how they might benefit. Sometimes if it's just a difference of a few dollars between perhaps going on a spouse's policy and they look at the buyout and it's really not a great incentive, then they'll pass and stick with the town's policy. But if we're able to move some people off our policy and save 50% of the cost, then obviously they have to guarantee that they're insured by a separate entity or a different entity other than the town. Then they would, the school district, then they would obviously get roughly $5,000 a year versus $2,000. So that's pretty much a summary of what the policy would do. As I say, it's an existing policy. It's an amendment to an existing policy to change the buyout option dollar amount.
Okay, so Walter, just to be clear, you're changing it to a percent of the single.
That's what I was just about to say, yes, because this way here, you don't have to amend it every year or look at it every year. It will float with the cost that the town's incurring. And obviously as policies go up, it'll go up. And if policies go down, yuck, yuck, yuck. then, it would go down. So yes, it is a percentage.
Matt?
Are we on the hook for ensuring that people have alternative coverage other than just signing the certification, like per ACA or anything like that, Walter? Or is them signing this form good enough for us to say we did our due diligence?
Well, they have, the policy says they have to provide proof of insurance.
Proof of insurance.
So, they would have to provide us a copy of either, the summary of insurance that they have now, or some verification that they do have coverage.
Great.
Yes, that we wouldn't want to, circumvent, not having anything at all, or having them impact us from the ACA end of it.
Right. Good question. Other questions? I have one, and maybe it's for Matt, maybe it's for Walter, I'm not sure. Does anybody recollect what the school's buyout is? My recollection is it was like $5,000. It was a fairly good sized number for exactly the reasons that Walter stated. I know it was lower years before. And I thought they kept amending it up, but I believe they're on a fixed dollar amount. Walter, this is
a school board member in the other room, but I don't know that she would know it off the top of her head.
Yeah, no. Well, this is the first reading. Can we have that as a question, Walter, as to how this compares to the school, just so we can see whether we're at least reasonably in sync? And then that can be, if there's concerns about that next week when we discuss it, then that can come up at that time. So at least we'll have that information.
Yep, can do.
Okay, anything else on this item before we move along? Okay, well, again, Walter, appreciate your diligence, and I guess just for our edification, you have on your task list to review policies on a regular basis. Obviously, we were pushing on some of the financial stuff, and Cheryl has, accommodated us on that. Is this now getting into more of the other policies, or is this all still related to what you would consider the financial stuff? And we'll get into some of the other things and the ongoing reviews of those later.
This one here was more timely because of the fact that we're coming upon our open enrollment period
Oh,
on June 1st. So
yeah.
Having this incentive in place, a more of a larger incentive in place during open enrollment obviously gives people an opportunity to, look at options versus, what we're currently offering. So it was really kind of, brought about as a timely thing more than anything else, rather than waiting another year.
No, I appreciate that you're thinking about this and thinking about the order as opposed to just blindly working down from, first one through, the last 100, number 100. I think that makes sense. We appreciate your insight on that. So that was good forward thinking. Okay, next up for review then, so this will go on the agenda for next week for final reading and approval then, correct?
Yes.
Good. So then let's move on to the guidelines for town buildings and facilities as they relate to COVID-19. Walter, give us some, oops, I'm sorry, Tim, did you want to say something first?
Are we all set with Cheryl? I don't want to,
Oh, yes, thank you. Yeah,
I don't want to kick her out, but if there's something else coming up, but
I was going to stay for the warrant article in preparation for town meeting, but thank you.
Oh, yeah, actually, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Thanks anyway.
Yeah. Okay, well, let's get through the rest of this stuff and then we'll get to Cheryl. So, Walter, can you give us an overview of what we want to review and in particular?
Yep. So as we talked about last month, we agreed that we would, revisit the rules every month at the second meeting just to see if there was time to make a change. Last meeting we did that, and we decided, or you decided to stay pat with the rules that are in place. I received some updated information from Bob today that I forwarded to you this afternoon. I'm not sure if you got it or not, but it speaks to some of the changes and so on and so forth that are going on, and more of those have actually taken place since I sent those out this afternoon. So Bob's prepared to kind of give an update and so forth, and then have a discussion about whether or not we want to consider any further adjustments or continue to stay pat.
Okay, Bob, well, let's hear what you have to say then.
All right, I had sent a sort of a briefing statement, and Walter can fill you in on some of this stuff. Basically looking at where we stand. We've got about 25.7% of the population is fully vaccinated. Today, CDC came out with recommendations that anybody fully vaccinated can go maskless outdoors. Also, they can return to work even if they're exposed, as long as they do not have show any signs and symptoms. That's in tonight's packet that you'll get if you haven't read that already. We are still in an area where we have substantial disease. People are still getting sick. We're in Northwood getting 1 to 2 cases a day. It looks like it's going down, but that's simply because after 10 days they get removed and then new ones fill the list. So right now we're sitting at 5. I think looking across the board right now, Barnstead, hi Pam, is going up. But otherwise the area is remaining fairly calm. So with that in mind, there are a couple of thoughts. I looked and realized that we've got about 8 items that the town is covering with regards to their COVID planning. I mean, there's stuff for the transfer station, the athletic fields, the community center, town hall, meeting rooms, the town offices and employees, up and coming beaches, and if there's going to be a summer rec program. And so now that we're leaving what was the reaction period and going into a more recovery period, it might be time to start revisiting those. That being said, most of the current concern from Health and Human Services and CDC regards actions occurring within inside buildings. So in other words, there's a difference between inside and outside. And since we are still in a case of where we have community-based disease, we have a school vacation this week, which means you'll have students coming back next week. It would be sort of my recommendation that in terms of town hall and community center, that we hold where we are now until May 7th, when new guidelines come into existence. But I think we can visit certain things like the mask order that we had put for the town dump and the athletic facilities, because now that's outside. So I'm here to deal with any questions or concerns you have.
Well, I think that's good advice, Bob. So if I interpret it correctly, and correct me if I don't, what you're saying is for the items or the areas where it relates to outside, those we could act on changing right now. And then we wait and see how things go after school vacation, and then come back and revisit the individual inside items at that point.
Well, it's looking at this point as on May 7th, we're going to leave the safer at home and come into a whole new guidelines. And I sent you the draft on that. I believe it was beginning of last week. I can resend that out if you don't have that, but they're looking at loosening some of the things, but not all of the things. In the packet that I sent to you, I reminded you of the Swiss cheese model. The idea is that if we drop one thing, we need to make sure that others are in place. And as we come into May, doors will be open, windows will be open, and so we've increased ventilation. And so at that point in time, we could look at some of the concerns about opening up meeting hall.
Yeah.
I would suggest, though, that in other words, and in terms of Walter's operation, that we are at a point now where we could consider bringing people back into the town hall in terms of employees.
So would that be in May, on the first May meeting that we do that, Bob?
Again, that would be up to Walter. I think right now there are enough guidelines and safety in place. I think a number of your staff there is vaccinated, and as long as we maintain that outside people are not entering into the office areas, that's something that could be looked at. But again, it's just part of the recommendation is that we hold the course in terms of meeting rooms and town hall, but we could look at opening up office space and relieving some of the concerns about the athletic fields and the transfer station that are currently on the books.
Well, let's hear what Walter has to say, and then we'll open it up to the select board.
I agree with Bob. I think it's certainly time, especially on the outside venues, that we can, start to loosen things up and no longer make the masks mandatory, for instance. I also agree that, come May 7th, I think we're going to be looking at a whole new set of guidelines, and it might be just a wee bit premature, just by a week, to make a move now until we are able to review those, and then revisit this again at our first meeting in May after those guidelines are out, and see if that's the time to make adjustments on the interior facilities, like the community center and the town hall for meetings and so forth. Because Bob's correct. I mean, with being able now to open windows, well, most days anyway.
Not today.
It seems like every day I open a window, it's, the snow starts coming in it.
Yeah.
Something that's gonna help. And, I expect, as far as the office environment is concerned, certainly, we're not letting the public utilize the restrooms. We're not letting the public come in and go beyond, the entry area and so forth. And I expect that we're going to continue that practice. We're also still, we're still masking within the office as we move about, in most cases, depending on how many have been in the office. We're seeing more and more people coming into the office now, and we still, our average capacity for the day, half day is 4, and we're down to 3 after 1 p.m. in the office. So, but there are some days that all 5 of us have been there as well. Downstairs, they're doing a great job managing, the town clerk's tax collector's office. They're able to, maintain regular hours and just ask people to wait outside if there's a maximum number of people that can't be, accommodated in the space that's available and so forth. So I agree with Bob. I think we can take action on the outside activities, and then just hold off a little bit longer on the inside.
Okay, Pam?
Just looking at the swap shop, they're really doing a great job at keeping the occupancy down to 2 occupants and mask wearing. But as that is a very small space, and it's all volunteers, should we continue the policy of masking and occupancy with the swap shop?
Okay, I think that's for consideration then when we'll bring each one of those up individually, it sounds like. So let's just get some general comments, then we'll go down through the ones we think we can change. So Tim?
I'd like to hear from the Public Works Director if he has any comments on the dump transfer station. Chris, you there?
Good idea.
We have his 2 cents worth.
Hey, everybody. Yeah, going on Bob's recommendation stuff. I mean, the state guidelines are obviously pretty strict on it. We adhere down to the transfer station on it. I personally don't think it's a good idea. I mean, another month with the masks isn't going to kill anybody. It may be just they took the statewide one down, but I mean, personally, it's totally up to us. And I feel that there's too many people down there, and they're in and out, and I mean, they're within less than 6 feet of distancing because they're parking 3 cars in a row. I mean, we can't get that total distancing down there. So my recommendation is no.
to hold off on anything on the transfer station. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, that's good input. What about, maybe Matt, could you give some thoughts as to how you feel about the recreation fields?
Sure. I think it's the density is low enough at the rec fields for the spectators that I would be pretty comfortable. And I don't think we actually need to remove anything. I don't think we ever set a mask guideline for the rec field. I remember when it came up when we were talking about, it was the trunk or treat event last fall, and we specifically worded it for that event so as to not pigeonhole ourselves into anything moving forward. It's, people generally are masking right now with the sports that are going on because the sports are requiring it. So even though we might not have a mask mandate for that facility in effect, I know that, I coach lacrosse. Our lacrosse program has a policy that says all spectators are going to be masked. What we don't have is a mask policy in place for athletes on the field. And that's, again, pretty much in line with what we're getting from the state in terms of youth athletes. So we can certainly double check it, or it wouldn't hurt to make a motion to specifically state that masks are not required by all spectators per the town at the athletic fields. But I don't think we necessarily need to. And again, it might be a moot point given the fact that the sports organizations are currently requiring it. Soccer is starting shortly, and that's a municipal program who will most likely just follow whatever guidelines we set forth. So that would be the biggest concern.
Okay, I'll just tell you what I'm hearing is there's some concerns, there's some thinking that maybe we should just continue on for a little bit. I'm going to make a suggestion that for our next meeting, Walter, in conjunction with Bob, provide us with recommendations on each one of the venues that we need to address. And if we could include those in the packets, then we can be very specific. We can say, yep, we agree with this one. No, change this one to this, or no, leave this one the way it is. But that would give us a concrete stepping stone to address each one of them. I have to say I guess we talked about them all, but I was a little bit surprised when Bob started listing them off. And I feel if we just try to address them on the fly here, we're not going to really have the detail we need. So I'd prefer to get specifically, here's the one for town hall. Here's the recommendation, what you can consider changing it to based on the new guidelines. And here's why or why not you can feel comfortable doing that. Are people comfortable with that, including the people that are going to have to do some work on this?
So you're going to bring it up at the next meeting, which is May 11th. So May 7th is going to get a whole new guideline.
Exactly.
So there'll be.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That
they'll tweaks and changes and come up with a bigger, better plan by May 11th, May 7th, right, Bob?
Yep.
Yeah.
One question I do have, and this is more for Matt, is are we looking at any summer programs in addition to soccer and so forth that we probably need to be looking at?
At this point, no. I think our biggest concern would be what our rules are going to be at the beaches. We did adopt masking and social physical distancing guidelines for the beaches last summer. So that would be one that we'd have to walk back for sure if we chose to.
Okay.
But in terms of programming, right now on the books, no.
Good. Yeah, well, Walter can pull together where the actual documents are that we put together, because I was noticing that the last thing I had on capacity for the room had been when we were at 12, and I thought there had been some changes on that too. So having all of that in one spot would be good.
Yeah, let's do the due diligence on making sure we have all the different quote decrees that we made on that, and then if Bob, you and Walter could come up with recommendations on each one of them that we could then review prior to the meeting, and then we can act on them and move us along here.
Good. Well, I'll bring the coffee, and we can Walter can bring the donuts, or vice versa. We'll get together this week sometime.
Great. Great. Tim, further comments on this?
Just one more comment from Mr. Young. After I get my hard copy of the town report, will you be available for signing?
Absolutely. It's
Yeah.
like a yearbook.
Yeah, that's a great
The
idea.
comments I keep getting from people is, you didn't have to die.
Yeah. We're saying all these nice things and he didn't die yet.
I actually got to hear them, so thank you all.
Yeah, that's good.
Yep.
That's good. Well, you are doing an awful lot. And I think about this past year. Oh my gosh. So thank you.
Well, I think in terms of looking at where we are and Walter being an E&D, I mean, we kind of think of this emergency cycle. And
Yeah.
we've gone through the actual response phase. Now we're coming to the recovery, and hopefully we can get back to some semblance of order of normal in the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Well, it was a lot smoother ride having you on board. We appreciate that.
Yeah. Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Thank
We
you.
could have been in a lot more trouble or not enough information, so very well appreciated.
Okay. Are we ready
That's
to
all the
move on?
comments you're gonna get, so might as well go away.
I'm going to stick around to see if you actually deal with the cog, but I'll see you for now.
Yeah. Okay. I think we'll move now on to the TA report. Walter, do you want to start working through your list?
I certainly do. So update on staffing. We're continuing to receive and review applications for the building inspector, health and code enforcement officer. I do have an update on a potential candidate to discuss with you in non-public session later in the meeting.
Okay.
We do have a conditional offer that is pending for the recreation director position. As far as the drainage concerns at 4 Bow Street, I'm still waiting for a call back from DOT to discuss that situation. As I mentioned last meeting, we have confirmed the amount of rescue funds that we'll be receiving from the federal government in the vicinity of $426,594. We haven't really received any more hints of what the guidelines are going to be. So I think at this point in time, other than they're due out by mid-May, that we'll just wait and see what happens with them in terms of what we're going to be able to utilize those funds for and whatnot, and how it's going to flow to the town, through the state, et cetera. So more to come on that, but nothing new really.
Walter, let me interrupt. Tim, did you have a question on one of the items?
Yeah, just Bow Street. I know we're talking to the state and stuff, but do we need to get a hold of Eversource or the telephone company, whoever owns that pole, to kind of keep them in the loop? We might be moving that, just because I know it takes 6 years to get the telephone company to come out and look at something. So
Yeah.
just something to keep in the back of your mind that we might need, Eversource, or
Yeah.
because if we're gonna do that, that pole's got to be moved, one way or the other. So just something to.
Yeah, we've had that discussion, and once we're able to talk with the state and see if we're actually going to be able to work with them to rework that whole intersection, we figured collaboratively we will have more clout dealing with at least Eversource. Phone company is really a challenge. I know I've had that experience in the past, but certainly in the mix for sure.
All right, no, thank you.
Yeah.
Included in your pack, there was a request from New Hampshire Lakes regarding an additional $500 in support of the Lake House program, specifically on Harvey Lake. This $500 will provide an additional 40 hours of locally hired individuals. I know without a firm budget, I don't know if the board wants to take action on this now at this point, or if there's interest in expanding our contribution. We do make a contribution to New Hampshire Lakes in general for the other lakes in town, but this was specific.
Let me speak to that first, if you don't mind, Tim, because
Oh, yeah.
I've been through this now for multiple years. So on the warrant articles, there's 2 related to this. One is to treat lakes that have already been contaminated. Primarily Northwood Lake is getting those funds. They build up over the course of several years, and then they spend $50,000 or $60,000, order of magnitude, all at once to do another treatment program. So you can sense from that that's relatively expensive. And so several years back, the town decided that we would also then start funding preventative measures. And two specific lakes, Janice Pond and Pleasant Lake, have local lake host programs run by the local associations. They have come in fairly regularly, requesting funds each year. And this past year was no different. The money on the warrant is to cover those. Plus, we do have some money in the what is it, Walter? A fund or a reserve fund for this. So we could, if we wanted to, after we see whether this warrant passes, I think give them this money. But I do want to say that this is a little bit different request than the other ones, in the sense that I did not see, or do not recollect anyway, anybody from the Harvey Lake Association themselves coming in. And so just so you know, when the Janice Pond Association requests the town's money, we request that it goes directly to New Hampshire Lakes, because they're the ones that run the payroll and everything. So in essence, the money that we ask for goes to them, but it is on behalf of a local organization. And Walter, do we know if a local organization has actually asked for these funds, or is it only via the New Hampshire Lakes?
It's only through New Hampshire Lakes, as far as I know.
Okay, I think maybe we have to, personally, think we have to ask if there's a lake association there or some type of organization for that, because we'd be changing policy to just send it in general to them, not knowing that there's a local organization actually running the lake host program for Harvey Lake. That would be my concern. So Tim and then Matt.
Excuse me. Now, the lake host is like, the person sitting at the boat ramp and stuff,
Yes.
checking the boats and stuff. Okay, so where do?
In and out.
Yep. Where is the Northwood boat ramp for Harvey Lake? We own a boat ramp that goes into Harvey Lake. Because somebody's told me it's down, like, across from the police department, take the first left and it's down there somewhere, but I've never physically seen it. Is it accessible?
I don't know, and that's part of the consideration, Tim, is
I'd like to know if you have a physical town owns property that people can back their boats and down into the lake.
Yeah, I can tell you, like for Janice Pond, it's actually a state ramp.
I know the state gave us Northwood Lake because they gave us, but
yeah.
I don't. Do we have a ramp into Harvey Lake that the town owns?
This is part of why I would like to see a local group come in and explain all this. That you're on the same wavelength, as I believe.
Put it on the warrant for next year if they want to, but yeah.
Well, I will say this: there was a couple years where we did put extra money in the hopes of encouraging other lakes to have preventative programs. So there is some money in the kitty reserved from previous years where we could fund them this year without having to penalize the others. So if we can figure out some of the stuff that you just asked, I wouldn't be necessarily against that, but I'd like to understand exactly how it's going to work. And like you say, who's the access, who's the local people helping us. Pam, please wait for Matt to weigh in first, please.
So I can answer some of those questions. There is a public boat launch. It's town owned. It's in rough shape. Part of that is due to where it goes in is fairly shallow, but it gets quite a bit of use. there is a Harvey Lake Association. I can vouch for that. They're fairly active. I think I would actually hate to see us lose this in the shuffle for the lack of waiting for a local organization to request the funds when the funds are going to wind up going to New Hampshire Lakes anyways. And Ms. Balanoff, who sent the initial letter to us as the board, is a local. She's in town and I believe lives on Harvey Lake. So we've got, plenty of local connections. It's a great town-owned property. The ramp is directly across the lake from the high school, down in the Harvey Lake neighborhood. So,
Matt,
and what I will say is, in terms of like that particular ecosystem, like when we have issues in there, and I'm talking from a fairly high level user of that particular system. So like if there's a blue-green algae bloom or something like that, or a couple of years ago, it got real hot, it got deoxygenated really quickly. If milfoil were to get introduced into that pond, it would choke that pond out in no time at all. It's small and it's a jewel. It's a great little spot of water. So I'd personally be very much in favor of sending that $500 over, especially where we've been asked for it from the organization that's going to manage it at the end of the line anyways. If folks would feel better about having it come through the Harvey Lake Association, I get that. It just strikes me as being an additional layer that's not entirely necessary, given that they'd be taking everything that New Hampshire Lakes provides them in terms of making the request, and then handing the money back to New Hampshire Lakes. It just strikes me as redundant.
Okay, Pam?
Thank you. In rereading the letter, this looks to be imperative. It is New Hampshire Lakes. It is their lake host aquatic invasive species prevention program. So that is part of the New Hampshire Lakes. And here they want to earmark the 40 hours to the 2021 Lake Host program on Harvey Lake. It seems cut and dry that this is a earmarked funding towards an additional 40 hours. So, and in reading the middle paragraph about last season, 3 boats arrived with from previous water bodies infested with aggressive non-native plants and animals, included variable milfoil and yada yada. This needs to be dealt with, and I don't think that it's a wait situation. I think it's very clear that New Hampshire Lakes is asking for this earmarked for Harvey Lake. It's their own program, the Lake Host program.
Okay.
So I agree with Matt.
Yeah. Further comments?
No, you said we own Harvey Lake and we own the boat ramp for Northwood Lake. Now, and we're raising money and everything else. Can't we charge people $5-10 to put their boats in to recoup some of this money to help us out?
I don't know.
The state signed over the boat ramps to us, and it's our land. Is there?
Walter, can you answer that?
Yeah, it's it's a nightmare. Number one, it's involves a significant amount of staffing, 7 days a week, 12 to at least 12 hours a day. I'm not so sure how far ahead we would end up. That and the other thing that becomes an issue is, is it just for residents? Is it just for summer residents? Is there special passes for renters? There's very few that do charge from the towns that I've worked in, and only because of the fact that it's the management involved doesn't necessarily pan out with the income you get.
Okay. I guess to wrap up the discussion from my end, I'll just say point blank, I'm a little bit reluctant without having the town vote and knowing what's going to get approved to preemptively pull out of the kitty that we do have $500 for these folks. And then we don't know how much is going to be left for the people that have had fairly large lake host programs in the past. And like I say, I'm just a little bit uncomfortable not knowing that they didn't even come in. So we don't have a sense as to what kind of program they have or anything like that. But if somebody wants to make a motion to approve the $500, please feel free. Okay, so it sounds like Pam, go ahead. Oops, you should probably take yourself off mute.
I didn't think you'd ever call on me, so I turned it off.
What?
Can we put this back on the, can we put this back on the agenda for, say, the 25th, once we see the deliberative session? And then we could also maybe get some research in by then on New Hampshire Lakes and/or Harvey Lake Association. And I'd be a lot more comfortable with that than just saying no.
Yeah, well, I'm not saying no either. I actually would like to see what the town votes first off, because we may have more money than you think. And we might be able to even give them more money, because there was a kitty for encouraging other folks to have lake host programs. And so, for example, Genesee Pond did, and we increased the funds. Pleasant Lake did, so we increased the funds. We didn't hear from these folks until after the fact now. So like I say, I would wait not till the deliberative session, but until after the town vote, when we really know what we got. But
I'm
again,
just thinking Memorial Day is when these boats are just going to be everywhere up here,
right,
if not sooner.
right. Well, and they're no different. That's why I say we don't even know what their lake host program is. So, for example, in this case, I'll just give you an example. On Genesee Pond, we fund the vast majority of it. The town gives us some money to help, but we, here, this association, we fund quite a bit of it ourselves, because we know we can't put the burden fully on the town. So,
are you saying you don't want the 25th? You'd like a later date?
well, yeah, I'd like to know after the town vote. That's when we'll know really how much money we have.
June 8th?
Yeah. And like I say, I don't have a sense as to, are they only going to fund 40 hours for the whole year?
I think it says an additional 40 hours.
Yeah, so yeah. I mean, in the past, we used to get reports and stuff, how the money was spent, how many hours, the whole bit. Matt?
So I'm just nervous that we're being a little penny wise, pound foolish here. We're talking about $500 to potentially stave off a multi-$1,000 effort to reduce a invasive species infestation, right? So, especially where the lake, that particular lake, is used by the high school for all sorts of stuff. Like, so it's used by recreationalists. There's people living on the lake. There is public access. For $500 to reduce the chances, clearly not to zero, but to reduce them substantially. And that 40 hours will be spread across, the high traffic hours, right? It's going to be staffed on weekends and, during the time they're seeing the most boat traffic in and out. So I'd love to see us do this and not wait for the vote, because at that point we're going to have a whole lot of boats already in and out of there, going from Northwood Lake into Harvey and vice versa. And that, it just makes me nervous.
Well, that's the way the other lake host programs work, though, Matt. I mean, every other lake host program here in town has money in advance that they raise and collect so that they can start. Like Genesee Pond's going to start in May without town funds.
And they
that's
very
why
well may have a lake host scheduled. I don't know that.
Right.
Right. And they're looking for some extra funds. So maybe instead of waiting for after town meeting, we could just invite them to come in.
Well, that's fine too.
And talk it through.
Yeah, Walter?
Why don't you, in order to move on here, why don't you just let me investigate a little more into details about what they're looking for. We'll put it on the agenda for the next meeting and report then, so that we don't spend more time going around and around on it.
Yeah, good point. Sorry. Pam? Pam?
No, Walter, included with your included with your information. If we were to give the $500, I'd like to know clearly where's the $500 coming from, so we have that clarity for the budget committee.
Sure.
So specifically, where's it come from? Perhaps what's the balance of that fund?
Will do.
Thank you.
Okay. Sorry, Walter.
No problem. Time to move on.
Cut us off earlier next time.
So moving on to the, just reporting that our Joint Loss Management Committee met, held the second quarter meeting on April 19th. A copy of the minutes for both the first and second quarter meetings were included in your packets. And then the committee will be conducting the self-assessment inspections of all town facilities at the next meeting in July. So just a FYI, let you know that that committee is working in compliance with the requirements of the Department of Labor. Just an update on the current RFPs, the proposals for both the repairs to the town hall extension and the community center for painting of the library, trim, and the community center are in actually final form and will be posted tomorrow. The financial report follow-ups is talking with Cheryl at the last meeting and continuing to discuss that since the last meeting. We will be posting both the year-to-date revenues and expenditure reports to the town website by the 15th of the following month. The former bandstand, which is made of concrete and sits on the property of the community center, has really been deemed unsafe and will be scheduled for removal by the DPW in the near future unless there's a overwhelming objection to getting that unsafe structure taken away.
Yeah. So Walter, just to be clear on that, the top is sort of poured concrete, but the rest is cinder block, I believe, correct? And
That's correct.
I'm not even sure there's a good foundation on that.
Yeah, it's really had its day. So time to go.
Okay, so how do you want to handle that? You're just going to move forward otherwise, right?
That's our plan. Yeah, unless there's an objection.
Anybody want to speak to that, Matt?
Just that according to our new policy, that if we're going to choose to dispose of that, given it's whatever the value, I believe we now need the board vote to do it, don't we?
Well, it's a negative value.
The overall value of a decrepit bandstand is under what we need to discuss.
I think it's a negative because of the liability.
Yeah. All right, that's good for me. I mean, the outcome's going to be the same either way. I just want to make sure we're staying true to our new policies.
Tim?
Are we taking it down and never putting it back? Because I know like some people like leave buildings up in town because if they rip it down, they have a certain amount of time to redo it because it's grandfathered. Seeing how it's, you know, close to the river there. Once we take it down, it'll never go back in the same spot. So we're done with it. You know what I mean? I know, you know, just for instance, I'm talking like, you know, around the corner by Sugar Mama's, you know, Matt Sweet's house. He leaves that little garage next to the road because if he ever takes it down, he can never build that close to the road, but it's been grandfathered. So if he, you know, so I just want to say if the town ends up taking it down and a couple of years later, we decide to renovate the community center and want the bandstand back, DES comes in and says it's not, you know, what I'm trying to get at, it's too close to the stream.
Yeah.
I guess just tear it down. We're out. Never mind.
Yeah, I haven't heard any discussion about building a new one or seen any funding. So I think obviously there might be a better location on the property to build a new one if there was a desire to build a new one, funding available too.
Well, I think maybe it was the police department also expressed some concern that we really don't have enough space for the public to meet there, park, and use a facility like that. There's just not enough room there on that parcel there. So, okay, so I guess if somebody wants to express some concerns and reevaluate, speak up now or forever hold your peace. No.
Okay, to the Memorial Day Parade and observance. You know, with the anticipated relaxation of the outside COVID guidelines, the Memorial Day Parade and observance plans are going to go forward. As far as, you know, obviously subject to getting the necessary permits from the state for the parade. So I reviewed the application today and signed it. So Dan's going to take it to the state and see if they're going to be willing to issue a permit at this point. So if everything goes according to plan, then we'll have a status quo observance. If not, then obviously there'll be some modifications. And then finally, just a reminder on upcoming meetings. So we have a board meeting on May 11 and 25. Our deliberative session is May 15th, starting at 9 a.m. at the Northwood Elementary School. And we have confirmed that voting day, June 8th, will also be at the elementary school. And that's all I have.
Okay, great, Walter. Thank you very much. And again, when we start to get down in the weeds, please speak up sooner. Okay, I'm going to move on to the warrant article review and prep for the deliberative session. Walter sent out the presentation with the items that we're going to have to deal with. There's a couple other ones also to be considered. You know, that Walter's going to work out with Keith, our moderator, in terms of how he wants, you know, whether it's him or Keith, you know, has a separate slide presentation or whether they're included. So in going over those first couple articles, Walter will work that all out with him. What I'd like to do with the board's agreement is start with the ones that we're going to deal with, go down through them. And I would like to have us each take a few of the items so that as we work through them, you know, the moderator is going to say, you know, this is the article, the moderator is going to read it, and then there might be some additional information that we want to add. And if you look at the first one, there's some preemptive and some additional slides after the article itself. And I'm willing to speak for those, which is the main operating budget. But then as we go down through the other ones, you know, you'll see that Walter has the article, and then he also has some explanation. And I think it would be good if we could each take, you know, a few of these, and when the turn comes up, if you'd be willing to speak, you don't have to read it exactly unless you feel better doing that, but just sort of paraphrase a little bit and give a little bit more explanation so that folks understand where we're coming from on these articles. Do folks feel comfortable doing that? Because the other option would be to either A, you know, I can paraphrase that, you know, and speak on behalf of all of us, or B, we can just let the folks read the content there as opposed to speaking it and, you know, sort of trying to explain it a little bit. So that's my thoughts. I'd like to hear how others feel. And maybe Matt, would you mind starting?
Sure. You know, I'd personally be open to the idea of each of us handling certain articles. My concern sometimes, though, is if there's an article that nobody has any questions on and we start talking, we might talk ourselves right out of a vote. So there's part of me that thinks we're better off waiting for questions to be addressed to the board, and maybe what we have is, you know, we can assign members to be the sort of go-to person for certain certain articles, and then address the
well, Walter did include some explanatory comments right underneath them.
Mm-hmm.
So, we could even have Keith read that if we want. We're really trying to decide how we think we should best play it. Pam, what's your thoughts? I'm just looking across the top here, and then Tim, I'll get to you.
Thank you. I'm kind of with Matt on this one, that if we go into reading and explaining every single slide and the data beneath it, we may lose our audience. So almost better to put the slide up. Perhaps Keith could, say Article 5, fire apparatus, lease and purchase. I'm not sure if we'll keep reading it or not. It just seems like, are there any questions or something? And we just build it individually. Having it earmarked by each of us taking a couple. I've never been, so this is going to be exciting for me. So I'm kind of taking your lead.
I lost some of what you were saying. Could the other folks hear what she said?
The volume's a little low, Pam. You might actually need to move your mic.
I have my mic up on top of my head.
That's better.
Yeah, I think what Matt said is a good idea. Let's cut out yada 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 yada, because it could be very long and drawn out, and just find a way, someone maybe, to introduce the article, and then perhaps read the audience and just see if it requires more input, and then have us earmarked so we can study up or be prepared to field questions of our particular one.
Okay, so Tim, how do you feel?
Only answer the questions people ask. We don't need to go into a 15-page summary of something. If they don't ask, move along and keep going.
Okay, so then given that's a little bit contrary to what I did on the first article for us, which is article number 4. I preemptively had Walter create some slides to go with the operating budget. Do you want us to take them out?
No, do not change a thing. They're wonderful. They're wonderful. Okay, so Article 4 is yours.
Okay. Well, then let's just go down through. Okay, so Article 4, you're comfortable with the idea that there'll be some discussion from an overall perspective in terms of what we're doing in terms of total appropriations, and then how that'll affect how much we have to raise in taxes, and also explain the fund balance. And really, both of those are really more of an overview of all the articles, really, because, for example, the fund management plan talks about using the funds multiple different ways, as we have through several different articles. So I'm actually going to suggest that we put those 2 slides first and then get into the articles and handle them the way you 3 have suggested. Okay, so if that's the case, then I'll take number 4. Who wants to take number 5?
I think 5, 6, and 7 are pretty much self-explanatory. If they don't vote for it or yes or no, it goes back. So those really,
right.
I don't see too many questions about those 3.
I was thinking Beth would like the fire apparatus and the ambulance.
I think we are. Well,
if there's a question.
Well, let me ask you point blank. So like number 5, we talk about that it's in accordance with the town's capital improvement plan and stuff like that. That's not part of the article itself. Do we want to just let people read it, or do we want to make some comments like that verbally?
I think
Walter has his hand up.
Oops, I'm sorry. I'm looking at it. So go ahead, Walter.
Thank you. I'm beginning to feel like Pam.
Thank you,
Well,
Walter.
I was looking at the document itself, so I apologize.
I think you have to remember that most of these are going to be very familiar to the attendees, because they've seen them multiple years, especially with the lease payments and so forth. So I agree. I don't think they require any real additional explanation, and only just respond to the, any questions that might come up. I think the only ones, obviously, that are going to really require some preparation and some clear presentation prior to discussion is the, first of all, Article 14, which is the one that we need to amend regarding the bicentennial committee. Perhaps Article 15, where that's, again, they probably have seen this before, but it's, getting closer to the celebration. 16 they've seen before. 17 they've seen before. 18, 19, 20, all those they've seen before until we get to the, to the public safety facility, Article number 22, which, as Pam mentioned, Beth would probably be the right appropriate person to speak to that. And
I was
then,
gonna say, Walter, just to interrupt, I'm sorry. 17, 18, and 19 for amateurs might need a little explanation just for the differences between them, just like I did.
yeah, and I think those will probably raise questions versus preemptive explanation. Do you think?
Okay, but I'm clearly hearing that the board's desire is to just have the moderator read the article. People can digest what's written below as part of explanation, and we just say, does anybody have any questions? I mean, that's what I'm hearing. Am I confusing this, or?
That's the way it makes sense to me, except for some of the articles that are, like Walter was just alluding to, the stuff they've all seen before. Let's introduce the article. Somebody moves to approve it. We open discussion. If somebody has a question, we'll be able to answer it. And whoever makes the most sense can answer that, including department heads. I imagine like the fire chief is probably going to be there that day.
Yeah, okay. So
And when we get
to
stuff, I think it would be to our benefit to have a little, more clear explanation on some, for, the first one that's going to be an issue, I think, will be Article 22. So when we get to Article 22, being really clear on what it is that we're trying to do. So like Walter has it laid out here, we might want to go a step beyond simply having it on the screen and discuss what our intention is. Any of the new capital reserve funds, anything that looks like we're moving money around and isn't really clear on what we're doing with it.
Okay, list them off, which ones aren't clear, and then did you want me to speak to them, or which ones were they? 22 was, one of them.
14, 15, and 22 so far.
14,
Yeah, like
14, 15, and 22.
what are 14 and 15?
bicentennial.
The discontinued bicentennial committee trust fund is 14.
Oh, yeah, okay, yep.
And then 15 is the Northwood 250 anniversary expendable trust.
Yep, okay. 14, 15, 22, any others?
25.
25. I'm sorry, I'm scrolling down to just, I don't have these in my head.
And we'll need to explain 26 as well.
In 23, because it's
Yep,
a new
and
account.
23.
Yep.
The 23. What's the next one, please?
25,
25.
And 26.
And Beth should kind of be in on some of this, like 22.
Yeah, we can go over this next meeting with her when she's back too.
Okay,
we're
so
gonna
Beth-
stick
Yeah,
her
but
with the big
let's
one.
speak first on 22, you said?
Yeah.
I think so. I think we ought to go with our like if there was a rec one up there, then Matt
Yeah,
should definitely
okay.
field that, and
Okay. Yep,
I'm
yep,
elderly, so no,
okay.
I won't take the elderly exemption, but
Okay, I'll take 14 and 15 unless somebody else wants them. Are you okay with me doing that? Okay,
You're
Again,
gonna do 4, 14, and 15 now, right? You're gonna talk about the budget, you said?
yeah,
Let
and
people, or just bits and pieces, just to,
yeah, well, and I just happened to look, there's a couple others that have associated slides. So like the one regarding the communications equipment, everybody knows we're going to get a question. Well, what are we buying this year versus last year? So that slide is in there. We can just go down to that slide and just say, hey, here's the backup for that. And similarly, somebody from the budget committee is going to say, well, is the revenue sufficient for the ambulance? And so we have the ambulance revenue chart in there. And I guess those, we can just have Keith flip to those in terms of, having them there. And if somebody has a question about it, then we answer the question. But otherwise, we just say that, we're backing up, this with this slide. Okay, so then 14 and 15, you want me to take, or does somebody else want them?
Go for it.
You
Okay,
volunteered.
so what's 23 again? I'm sorry for going back and forth.
22, that's the public safety.
That's Beth.
23 is established an information technology capital reserve account.
That I think, if we're talking about staff, I think that one's Walter or Cheryl. Okay, and that,
Thanks, Walter.
Or Matt.
On that,
Or Matt. He's in technology.
yeah, you want to do
He
that, Matt?
teaches kickball to kids. Come on.
Seriously, I'm a recreation guy.
Hold on. Now this one includes, that we put money back into the reserve, into the fund from software that we didn't buy because it was going to go out of date anyway. So we need to say that.
Yep, I'm happy to take it. That's fine.
Okay, that's good.
but we wanted to continue to perpetuate so that we can, be prepared for emergencies as
Right.
well as, plan for the future based on our capital replacement plan of equipment.
Got it. Okay. So Matt, if questions come up or maybe even just a general explanation to get it going.
Yep, can do.
Okay. The 25 is road improvement expendable trust. Who wants that one? Anybody? Tim, you want to take that one? Okay. And then 26 was modify the elderly tax exemptions. Anybody want that? If not, I'll take it. Matt? Okay, thank you.
I
Okay.
should actually take one, but
Well, do you want to take, what were 14 and 15 again? I can't keep this straight in my mind.
no,
Switching the money over.
I could probably do 14 and 15. Get that.
14 is discontinued bicentennial committee trust fund.
Yeah, you
And the
comfortable?
Northwood 250th.
And 15 is establish the anniversary expendable trust, and it's the same amount of money, correct?
No, this is the one. This is the one where
We have to make an amendment.
we have to make an amendment.
So we have to make an amendment, but it's the same amount of money, so it's no cost to the taxpayers.
Well,
It's coming out of the fund balance.
it's coming out of the fund balance. The first one,
8,400
the first one,
has
14.
8,400.
I'm sorry.
The first one has 8,400, and you're
Right,
doing
but we're
away with-
modifying that.
and then you're establishing the other one, and you're using 8,400. So the 8,400 goes in general fund and comes back out again.
No. We look at the amendment. The amendment specifically says we are not. Let me give you the background on this.
Well, it says they transferred to the municipality's general fund, and then it says here
If you look at the very bottom of that slide,
to come from unassigned fund balance.
I think you're reading off the warrant as opposed to Walter's slides.
No, I'm on the slide.
Okay, so read the very bottom paragraph, Pam.
Let's do some more homework on it. So we don't
Yeah,
have
let's
to.
not do it now, but I'm reading it exactly, and it clearly says the 8,400 goes into the general fund in this one, 8,400, but it's going to come out of the 2020 unassigned fund. So either way, it's a wash. just two different lines.
Um,
One is
The,
money coming in, one is money going into the new fund.
no, let me speak to this, because we originally proposed just what you're saying. Then we found out that it wasn't an expendable trust. We also found out that the people that put the money into the bicentennial fund, it wasn't for bicentennial fund festivities. It was the funds generated by activities during the bicentennial, which includes book revenues and a host of other things. And those people that put all that work into it and wanted the funds to be used perpetually for improving town hall, flowers, et cetera, objected to us taking the money because, one, it wasn't even an expendable trust. So to correct that error, we are saying we are not going to do that. We are not going to take the $8,400 out of that. We are going to not touch this fund whatsoever. That all said, we still think we have quite a bit of money in the fund balance. And so we can still, with Article 15, take money out and not have.
I got you, Walter.
Yeah.
Excuse me, Hal.
Yeah.
But it does, as a voter, I would say the first paragraph does say, interest to date of withdrawal or to be transferred to the general
Right.
fund. So
Right.
it does
And
say that in the warrant.
it does. And we're going to, as a select board, ask for the modifications shown at the bottom of the slide. Because we committed to the people that generated this money that we would fix our error.
And the amended language is what will be on the ballot, Pam. That's an important point to make.
Well, if
Amended at town meeting, the amended language is what goes on the warrant.
Right. So Hal, you better take it because I'm not reading it clearly.
okay, okay.
And obviously, if I'm not reading it clearly,
Yeah. Okay.
other
That's
people
okay.
not. Assuming I'm average.
Okay.
Sounds like you got them all.
Yeah, we got them all. Okay.
Moving
So,
on.
yeah. Thank you, Walter.
And I'll make sure that we print enough copies of the slides to have at the deliberative session. So if people, want to, read along or want to take the explanation home with them, that type of thing, they'll have that available to do it.
Actually, that's a good point. And we can post it also. So all the more to the point that the other board members were making. The information's there. If they have additional requests for info, we can supplement that.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mr.
Good enough.
Chairman, can I request a quick recess so I can go sing happy birthday to a special boy turning 10 today? There's
Well,
cake.
you can do that, and I'm going to take a restroom break.
Absolutely.
And then we can all sing to them.
Tell him happy birthday.
I will. I'll pass it
Right.
along.
That'll embarrass them.
So 3-minute break, 4-minute break.
Yeah, Hal, you know what it is? I looked at 15 first, then
Oh.
14. So
Yeah.
on the slide for 15, it says discontinue. So, and then if you go back to 14, so that needs to be amended on that slide. Take that off that slide, that little,
We can't amend it.
not the warrant, but the slide. The slide's got that little explanation
Oh.
in italics. Read
Hold
that
on.
explanation.
Let me, you read 15 first.
Yeah, read the explanation. The explanation needs
Oh.
to come off the slide because that's what's going to confuse people like me.
Yeah, you're right. That should say from the fund balance.
Yeah, see, now that's where I got lost. I'm like, what do you mean? It says it right here.
Okay, well, that's a good point. Is Walter online here? No, not yet. Okay, I'll tell you what, I'll address that with him separately.
I've got it. Thank you.
So I apologize for not looking like I could see what was going on, but what I was reading was different.
Yeah, well, you were reading off of 15 and I was reading off of 14 and I couldn't understand where you were coming from.
15, you can see 15 clearly
Yeah,
says
it's perfectly clear now.
not this. It says it right here.
Okay, so Walter, what Pam's saying is we got a little bit of an edit on slide
All done.
15 explanation. Oh, you did it?
Well, as we speak.
Wow, okay, we ready to
Awesome.
move, we ready to move on then?
And
So where are we at here? Okay, I appreciate everybody's indulgence. Roofing project bids, Walter.
yes, so as you know, we had a RFP out to reshingle the roofs on the garage at the town parade building, the large garage, and also on the east end fire station. And we have received 3 bids on our solicitation, which was posted publicly on websites and public locations, as well as to a select bid of bidders. And the apparent low bidder is Lane Roofing. They've offered 2 bids, one using an ICO Cambridge shingle at $9,225 for both buildings. They also have offered an alternative shingle, which is an Owens Corning shingle, and that total brings it up to $9,840. The other 2 bids we received came in from J&J Universal Construction. They're out of Dudley, Massachusetts, and they came in at $20,000 for the project. And we also received a bid from MGS Construction. They're out of Salem, in New Hampshire, and they came in at $20,100. Chris did review the bids based on his experience at roofing, and has talked to the contractor, I believe. Did you get a chance to reach him, Chris?
Hold this. Sorry, I'm playing basketball with the kids. No, I have not had a chance to reach out to him. Tomorrow I was going to check in with him because I get some other stuff I got to talk to him about.
But you didn't have any question about him being the successful low bidder based on his
Nope.
submission? And
No, I know them. I know their contracting crew pretty well, along with actually the rest of them. But yep, I would definitely recommend them.
you recommending the Owens Corning shingle over the ICO?
6 1, half a dozen the other. I use ICOs and I use Owens Corning too. So depending on how you guys want to go, I know Owens Corning has a little bit better rating as far as wind resistance and things like that. So that's the only recommendation I can make.
That was my understanding too. So.
Tim?
Did you throw out the little town well as a kicker that RP go out, or is that extra?
No, I'm going to take care of that myself. We'll
Okay.
do that under the facility, and I'm just gonna put metal roof on that when I do the community sand salt building.
Good question. Other questions? Well, Chris, I got a question. Which shingle is more aesthetically pleasing?
So the only difference between ICO and Owens Corning is if you look at them, they have a 15-degree bevel. That's about it. So
Oh,
one's a straight architectural, the other one's got a little tiny bevel in it. That's all. Other than that, they're all same for same.
okay. I guess the related question is, though, these guys are half the price of the others. Are we comfortable that they can get the work done and just as good as the higher priced folks?
Yeah. So Lane was the only one that actually physically come out and measured the buildings themselves. Like me and Walter talked about it, we believe they took the other ones off of Google Earth and just threw some crazy number at it.
See if it sticks. Yeah. Okay.
So.
Okay. Makes sense. So, Walter, are you looking for a motion to accept that bid?
Yes, I am.
Do I have, oh, wait a second. Tim has a question.
Oh, I was gonna make a motion.
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna make a motion to Lane Roofing for the ICO Cambridge shingles for $9,225 for the East End Fire Station and the, what do we call that, the garage at the town hall?
Great.
Is that how we called it? Oh, town parade garage roof replacement.
Yep.
So.
Okay. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
Second, thank you. Discussion. Pam?
We take that. Oh, go ahead, Pam. Sorry.
Oh, you were just adjusting your mic. Okay. Matt?
I was just saying we could take that $600 we just saved on those cheaper shingles and send that to Harvey Lake. Problem solved.
I think we ended that discussion. Walter will give me a kick in the butt if I bring it back up again. So, okay. Hearing no further discussion. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And I vote yes also. Okay, thank you. Next.
Nice try, Matt.
Okay, continuation of government. You want to go through an explanation on that, Walter? Or, well, first off, do we have anything else for Chris? Anything else for Chris? Okay. Chris, I guess we're all set unless you want to just listen.
Yeah, I'm gonna hang out anyways. So
Okay.
I don't put any time in the meeting stuff.
Okay, so Walter, you're going to go over the emergency coordinator, our emergency continuation of government, please.
Can I just can I confirm which shingle was selected? I was distracted.
The ICO.
The icon.
Okay. Thank you. All right. Yeah, so moving forward, so the town has a continuation of operations government plan that's been updated over the years as things change, people change, etc. So it hasn't been updated in the past 2 or 3 years, and I thought it would be appropriate to have it updated. But basically, you know, as it states, this is a list of positions that would be authorized by the Board of Selectmen to continue the government in the event that you know, we were attacked by the town of Deerfield, and there was an emergency situation whereby, you know, the Board of Selectmen wasn't able to convene for one reason or another, and you know, either became incapacitated, and so this would be the kind of the hierarchy in the chain of command by which government would continue, because it would need to continue in order to manage whatever emergency takes place. And so typically there's a select person. In the past, it's been the chairman, and then the town administrator, the emergency management director, and then the deputy emergency manager and management director. And the copy I sent you, I just redacted the personal phone numbers of the members of the list. But that's really the purpose, is just to have that established. So, you know, in the event, God forbid, that there's chaos in the quarters, that you know, we can go to this continuation that was approved by the sitting board, and there's a hierarchy that can you know, continue operations and so forth, and nobody's duking it out in the town hall trying to decide who's in charge.
So, Walter, on the form that you sent, Do each of us fill that out? So there'll be one for each select board member?
No, there's one select board member that's going to be in charge in the event that the majority of the select board members become incapacitated and is no longer in a majority.
So,
Designated survivor. Cool.
yeah, well, I guess,
Which one of us is more likely? Which one of us is more likely to survive an attack by Deerfield?
Which one had more military training?
hold on a second. I guess I thought it was whoever. So like, if the top line here, Pam, myself, and Matt are gone, then it's Tim by default, is it not?
Yeah,
But he's got the
That
experience.
very easy could happen. No, I can.
He's the youngest.
Careful there, buddy.
help me,
I
please.
think he's the youngest.
Yeah, explain how that works again, Walter. Well, let's just make it more relevant. Let's say 3 of us die from COVID, or 4 of us die from COVID.
It would obviously be the remaining board member, but in the event that, it wasn't a complete wipeout of the board, one would be designated, and as I said, typically it's the chair. But obviously, if the chair is incapacitated, it would drop down to the vice chair, and then it would drop down to one of the surviving members.
Okay.
So-
Okay. So that's the sequence, really, the way it works then. Chair, vice chair, and then one of the remaining 3.
Yeah.
Okay. Is that clear from the form? Because I guess we're asking all these questions because it wasn't to me.
Well, again, I am not going to presume to make any, appointments on behalf of the board. So, but traditionally, I'll tell you, it's been the chair.
Okay. What's the board's pleasure on this?
I think it should be the chair. You've got the best sort of top-down view of everything.
Okay.
To me, that's a no-brainer.
Okay. Pam, how do you feel?
I really like Tim. I just feel like, he's a go-to guy, but I agree that it should be the chair.
Okay. And Tim, how do you feel? I guess now it's just
No,
you and me arm wrestling
I
here,
agree.
buddy.
But after the first meeting, Bob M's gonna take all of you out, take over. So
It'll be a self-remedying situation, I guess is what you're saying. Okay.
put your name on the top of the list, Al.
Okay, that's what we'll do then. And do you need a vote on that, Walter?
Yes.
Okay, so Tim, do you want to make that motion?
I make a motion for Hal Creeder, if he's not incapacitated, to run the town with Walter, Bob, and Glenn.
I'll second that, but I think it's cruel to make Tim not nominate Hal when we just blew Tim off the map.
He was the last guy I was looking at. That's the only reason. Okay, any further discussion?
Does that motion include our acceptance of this entire document, or are we just talking about adding Hal?
Walter, I thought it was just to designate who goes on the top of that list. I thought the form stayed the same regardless otherwise.
Well, no, that would be the first thing to vote on. And then the second thing would be to vote on the succession.
You want that as 2 separate
as it
motions?
is.
2 separate motions then?
Yeah, because you may want to mix it up differently from 2 through.
Okay, I got it. Okay, so we're voting on the first one, which is just which select board member, and it's to make the chair the first choice, or first person. Is there any further discussion on that? Hearing none. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, so now we need a motion. Well, is there some discussion in terms of the follow-on list on the assumption that there's no select board members left? Is everybody comfortable with the follow-on list? Walter, read off the follow-on list again, please.
So it's the town administrator, the emergency management director, and the deputy emergency management director in that order.
Okay. So I'll open it up. Anybody have any discussion on that or comments? Tim, did you want to?
Is that how you ran it in the other towns, Walter, you think? I mean, pretty much standard?
Yes, and that's the succession that was here, numerous previous years of the ones I've been able to find.
Okay, and what about you, Bob? How do you feel? Is this
I'm-
pretty?
This is what, yeah, this is basically the way we've done it for a long, long period of time. Just, in fact, it's more of a concern when we only had 3 members on the board.
Right.
And our initial one actually was back from Cold War days, because there was a concern in terms of how, should we lose the selectmen, how could the town run? And so one of the things that had been in the original document was, how to petition the court and so forth, how to keep the town functioning. Because if you remember, there were 3 selectmen and Marion, and that was basically the town,
Yeah.
how things were running. So
Yeah.
lots of things have changed since then.
Yeah. Okay.
So I'll make a
Well,
motion to keep it 2, 3, and 4 the same.
Okay. Do we have a second on that?
Second.
Second. Any discussion? Hearing none. Tim, how do you vote?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, that's the continuation of government. And Bob, thank you for that historical aspect.
I just do want to add one more thing, is that there is something in addition to the cog, there's also the coop. And I know that one of our concerns has been the ability to say something were to happen to town hall, not necessarily the town officials, but the town hall itself. Could we bring a town hall back at some other location? And so a lot of this has to do is the ability to access our files from some other source. And I know that Walter was looking into it. I just wanted to make sure that that was still on the board's agenda to address.
Okay, so yeah, Walter, I'm going to let you speak to it. I know you've been doing some work on this, and also it's on your task lists or what? Yeah.
Yeah, it is something I've been working on, and actually it's from the IT piece, which is the critical piece, because everything's electronic now.
Right.
We have that plan in place with a couple of minor pieces of information that have to do with contact of software vendors and so forth. But other than that, the plan is done from the IT standpoint of view.
Good.
The only thing that would be actually necessary to really do would be to enhance the plan to talk about the alternative location and how we would stand that up and so forth in the event that Deerfield took over town hall when they attacked.
Okay, so Walter, can that be included as part of your task list there, your taskmaster?
It is
You know,
yeah.
And I know we kept are you going to keep the IT part of that separate, or are you going to combine them, or how? Well,
Eventually it'll be combined. Yeah, eventually it'll be combined, but that's the key piece. The IT is the key piece, because that's where we rebuild all our files, all our data. We'll be able to, continue to pay bills and pay employees and that type of thing.
Okay, just on a related note, just so we have some sense of comfort on this, what's the daily backup on the offsite stuff? Once a day?
Now, basically, it's more than once a day. It's backed up every 15 minutes on site, and I think it's every 2 hours or 3 hours. I don't have the plan.
Okay, so it's pretty good then. Okay,
Yeah.
good.
No, it's very good.
Good.
Good. Okay. Good work. That was important, as Bob said, and you made good progress on that. So thank you.
Mhm.
Okay.
Could we put Tim in as number 5?
I'm sorry, say that again, please.
In a sense of humor, could we put Tim in at number 5?
Tim said he was going to handle it himself either way, so I don't know if we need to do that.
Okay.
So, okay.
I tried, Tim. I tried.
Yeah. So thank you, Bob. So we did talk a little bit about the task manager, and I've asked Walter to just keep this on the agenda so that if people have questions about priorities or, just how well we're making progress on some of these things, it's your opportunity to ask. Anybody want to bring anything else up that's on the task manager list that we haven't discussed tonight? Okay, if not, again, Walter, appreciate you being so diligent on those items. Okay, at this point, we're going to open it up for committee reports or committee action items. And I believe Matt has at least one related to the rec fields.
I do. So, and we haven't met as a committee since our last meeting, but we did have one issue arise, and Tim alluded to it during his comments during our last meeting, and the parking situation on Bow Lake Road by the Bow Lake rec fields. So I actually this is sort of I want to make clear, this isn't coming from the committee per se, but more my role as the selectman who interfaces with recreation. Given a conversation I had with several folks, including the police chief and some of the public safety folks, that gate does now open for parking in there now that it's dried off a little bit. The issue that we still have is when there's back-to-back games, that parking lot overflows onto the street, and we're bringing people in from out of town who don't know or don't care that they need to be parking on one side as far over as possible. So my thought, and I generally had some consensus on this, is that we should post the other side of the road for, you know, some length as no parking side of the street on Bow Lake Road. So I don't know how specific we would need to be with a motion to post that road in terms of how much frontage or things like that, or if we can be somewhat vague, Walter, in terms of.
We should probably try to at least have some parameters so it doesn't show that it's posting the entire road.
Okay.
If it's possible to maybe estimate in yards, north or south or east or west of the, I guess it'd be north or south of the entrance. Or something like that.
So I think if we did say 50 yards either side of the gate, I think that would be really safe. Do folks have any thoughts on that before I make a motion?
50 yards will put you from that gate pretty much up towards like my house by the power lines, you know, the intersection. I'd rather see him park down like Bow Lake Road, you know, and 50 yards is gonna put you down pretty close to the crest of the hill by, you know, just above the Coburn access road, you know, that little hump to come up.
You think it would
Before you
go
get to
gets us that
you
far
know.
down?
50 yards isn't far.
Not that
No,
far.
it's
I'm not
150.
sure it would even get us to the first driveway on
It'd
that.
probably get to the Mrs. Wall's house, the big old farmhouse right there, across the street from where the Llamas is, you know.
Right.
I don't think 50 is enough, but
I'd more like to see it like a couple hundred yards, Matt, tell you the truth. That way you're sure.
I just don't want to overdo it. And what I'm nervous is that if we post the opposite side of the street, no parking, and we get down onto frontage, because basically directly across the street is livestock. And, you know, it's not near the entrance to a home. If we get too close to a driveway and somebody throws a party, I want them to be able to, you know, park people on their side of the street as it makes sense.
Well, can you say no parking for recreation facilities and solve that problem? Or is it just a general no parking? That gets too.
I say from the corner of Bow Lake Road all the way down to the, if anybody knows where Richie Cummins lives, it's got to be that far, because if you got to have, you know, fire apparatus, even not so much coming up the hill, but once you go by the field, going towards the Bow Lake Rock, you got to have that whole lane cleared. That's a big dip in the corner there. So I'd say from the Bow Lake Sherburne Hill intersection Y all the way down, and I can measure it out to the, there's a big culvert coming up the hill by Donald Bassett and Richie Cummins' house right there, you know, so.
Does that address Matt's concern that it's not going to be in front of people's houses?
Well, yes, actually, there's one long driveway right at the crest of the hill. He goes way in, so you can start right after his driveway. And then it's that old farmhouse from there all the way up to the intersection. So the only driveway, if would be, if, you know, everybody on that side of the road should be all set.
Yeah. You comfortable with that description, Matt?
Sure, and I mean, I'd be happy to even go with something like from the intersection to, 100 yards past the gate.
You can put up a couple signs, every 50 yards, put a sign up, little, like no parking sign, like you see at any place.
Well, let's pick something, go with it, and if we need to adjust, we'll adjust.
Yeah. So I'm going to make a motion to post the side of Bow Lake Road opposite the recreation fields as no parking from the intersection with Sherburne Hill to 100 yards past the gate as you're moving towards Route 4.
Okay, everybody understand that? Do I have a second?
I will.
Second, and now discussion. Okay, hearing none. Pam, how do you vote?
Yes.
Matt?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
And Hal is yes. Okay, Matt, anything else you'd like to bring up?
Nope, that's it. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Tim, you want to bring something up?
Is the signage coming out of the rec money, our money? 'Cause that was another question I got with the potholes. That the gravel. Okay, let's finish that one question.
Yeah, I think it's a good question. Well, I defer to Walter as to where the money for the signs comes from.
Public Works,
Public Works budget?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions or comments on this item? Okay, and Matt, anything else for you?
No, thank you.
Pam or Tim, anything you want to bring up at this point?
Nope, Matt, you said they fixed another pothole at the other fields. Chris
Yeah, the
fixed
big
another pothole
hole
for
at
you?
the lower rec fields got filled in finally after swallowing several cars over the last year or two. It's been filled in with rock now, and Chris did a really nice job. It's filled in and safe, but still serves its purpose for drainage.
Yeah, good. Speaking of that, I also saw I filled in a little bit around community center. Pam, you're up.
I was going to say I did the budget committee meeting, and many thanks to Walter and Cheryl for giving me an awful lot of prep work, information, background, explanation of definitions of various funds, and so we were very well prepared. There was a lot of information, and they did not get to reviewing the 2019 budget and the auditors letter, which we shared with them.
Right.
They, there was some question on providing the data, specific data that they wanted, some questions on committee members not getting paperwork in time for the meeting. Whilst we're used to seeing repeated updates right up to the day of the meeting, for us coming in via electronics, for many other groups, particularly a big group, not everybody is used to that occurring. And
Right.
little things like if a document has 5 documents in it, like it's one big scan, so it looks like one document, but it has 5 things within it. Many people may not know and just open it for the first couple pages and not realize that there's more stuff, more data coming behind it. So there's little things like that with the electronics. I understand that the budget committee, chairman and vice chair, met with Cheryl and Walter. Is that the case? I know we said they were going to do that.
Friday,
So,
this Friday.
this Friday. So, interesting meeting. Was in the midweek of the governor's full school decree, and I was probably not in my best humor to take a lot of random questions, but I think it went well.
Good. No, it seems like you're really warming up to that role, Pam, and we're glad you're doing it.
I'm wondering how the rookie got, budget. How did I earn that? So Thanks,
Because
Hal.
Cheryl makes it so easy.
Yeah,
Cheryl makes it so
really,
easy.
having the information, but also honestly having communication. Many things can be solved by simple communication rather than going off on a tangent. And so right now we're working on some basic budgeting terminology, such as expenditure, encumbrance, those kind of things, and understanding end of year finances via what's rolling over. So there's a lot there that people just need to ask the questions, and there are reasonable answers. There are explanations. Just got to make sure that ask the right people and go through that. So I think
Right.
it's
Yeah, we can get them.
progress.
Yeah, well, we committed to get them the information and stuff, and I think Walter's been doing pretty good. I mean, sometimes it's hard to anticipate, so I think maybe on Friday they can discuss that a little bit more, but I definitely see us making progress on this compared to where we were, let's say, 2 years ago.
Absolutely. Well, there's this realization that this is the 21st century, and with the
Yeah.
use of electronics and with spreadsheets and all of this, we have a
Right.
wealth of information and data available to us, and anything within a minute can be called up. So if somebody needs something during the meeting, there's no reason those kinds of things can't be provided. It is, however, that getting online and getting the PDFs
Right.
open and all that, and so it's a curve, a modernization for all of us. So
I think
to
we'll
me,
get there.
yeah, to me, this Zoom time has been very valuable because it shows us what we can do.
Yeah. Okay, good. I'm glad that worked out for you. And Walter and Cheryl, thank you for attending. I think that does help. I would just like to add from my perspective that as moderator for the school district, we had the school's deliberative session last Thursday. Thought that went extremely well. The folks in terms of COVID planning and how we keep our distancing and things like that really was handled very well. I don't even think there's any lessons learned that we need to go over. I think we can just basically repeat what we did there for the town deliberative session. And just as a note, Walter also indicated that he confirmed that we're going to have the town vote. So the second part of the deliberative sessions at the school also, even though they're back in school, live at school, they're going to take a day off so that we can vote at the school, which I think is really, really good. Okay, I think that's about it. I'm going to now open it up for citizens forum. Does anybody want to speak? Or Walter, have you seen anybody that wants to speak?
I haven't received
Hey.
any calls or no emails or anything like that during the meetings.
Okay, so if not, then I'm looking for a motion to go into non-public under 91 B for hiring. Walter, is there anything else that we need to consider?
Yes, C for a review of abatements.
Oh, okay,
And negotiations of sale of tax deeded property.
okay. So do I have a motion to go into public for, what is that, B and C then, please?
So moved.
Thank you. A second?
Second.
Thank you, Matt. Discussion?
Are we coming back out?
Oh, yeah, we,
Yes.
well, will we have stuff to discuss afterwards, Walter?
No, just anticipating that some decisions will be made on the abatements that we will announce them when we come back out.
Okay, fair enough. So then we will come back and go live again. So Walter, can you do that, or must Paul stay on to help us with that?
Paul does that.
Okay, so then,
Is Paul going to give Matt the private session now?
Yes.
okay, very good. So while that's happening, I'm going to just take a quick break and then, oh, wait, we didn't vote.
We can vote, yeah, I just said.
Yeah, sorry. So it's to go in for 91 B and C. Matt, how do you vote?
Yes.
Tim?
Yes.
Pam?
Yes.
And I'm yes also. Hal is yes also. Okay, so let's get